Most people who can point to Jordan on a map picture the same thing: red desert, ancient ruins and not much else. That image is not wrong. It is just radically incomplete. Jordan covers roughly the same area as Portugal. What that comparison does not capture is what is stacked inside that space. At one edge of the country, you're standing on the lowest exposed land on Earth. The Dead Sea sits nearly 430 meters below sea level. The air is thicker here. The water is too dense to sink in. Nothing about it feels ordinary. Turn east and the land climbs. Within a 2-hour drive, you reach highlands above 700 meters, where the air is cooler and the soil noticeably darker. These ridges face west toward the Mediterranean world and east toward the Arabian desert. That vertical range is the physical engine of everything this country became. Jordan sits where 5 countries converge: to the north, Syria; to the northeast, Iraq; to the east and south, Saudi Arabia; and to the west, Israel and the Palestinian territories. And in the far southwest, a narrow corridor reaches the Red Sea at Aqaba, Jordan's only maritime outlet and one of the region's most strategically placed ports. This is not a country tucked away from the world. Trade routes, pilgrimage roads, and military corridors have passed through this terrain for thousands of years. The reason is simple: Jordan is unavoidable. The geography forced every major movement in the region to pass through or around it. The Jordan Rift Valley is a deep geological crack running north to south, explains the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, and why settlement clustered along its edges. That desert is real. Roughly 80% of the country receives very little rainfall, but the landscape that looks empty from a distance is not actually empty. Hidden inside arid terrain are spring-fed canyons, hot mineral pools and ancient cisterns cut into rock, water sources communities have relied on for millennia. The country learned to find water where outsiders could not see it. That skill shaped where people settled, where cities rose, and which roots became permanent. The north is measurably greener than the south. The highlands receive winter rain and even occasional snow. Oak and pine forests exist here, in a country most viewers associate only with sand. Wadi Rum in the south is the landscape people recognise from photographs: sandstone towers, iron-red dunes, silence. But Wadi Rum is one register of a country that contains far more. The same country also contains Roman theatres, Byzantine mosaics, coral reefs, and a capital city built across 7 hills and occupied for 9,000 years. What Jordan actually is, in geographic terms, is a compression. A small state that contains the vertical, ecological and historical range of somewhere much larger. Understanding the terrain is one thing. What people built inside it is another story entirely. The terrain Chapter 1 described was not an obstacle. For the Nabateans, it was an engineering advantage. Canyons hid their city, cliffs became their walls, and flash floods became their water supply. They did not build in spite of the desert. They built because this harsh, open landscape shaped where they settled and how they survived. The Nabateans were an Arab trading people. By the 4th century BCE, they controlled the most profitable land routes in the ancient world. Incense from southern Arabia, spice from India, silk moving west, all of it passed through their territory, and their territory was Jordan's southern highlands. Petra was not chosen for its beauty. It was chosen because a hidden valley ringed by sandstone cliffs was almost impossible to attack and almost impossible to find. The entrance is a slot canyon called the Sick, barely wide enough for 2 horses side by side, cutting for more than a kilometre through rock that rises 40 metres overhead. Walking the Sick, you're also walking through an aqueduct. Channels cut into both walls captured flash floodwater and directed it into cisterns feeding the city ahead. Then the canyon ends. A facade of carved columns and pediments fills the frame. The treasury, cut directly into a cliff face 2,000 years ago. Most visitors stop here. The treasury is iconic, and rightly so, but it is also just the entrance hall to something much larger. Behind it, a valley unfolds containing a colonnaded street, a great temple, a Byzantine church built centuries later, and hundreds of tomb facades carved across the surrounding cliffs. At its height, Petra may have housed 20,000 people. Sustaining that population in a landscape with almost no permanent surface water required extraordinary engineering. The Nabateans built terracotta pipe networks, settling tanks and diversion dams that redirected flash floods into underground cisterns. The water system was as ambitious as the carved facades above it. Petra's wealth did not come from agriculture, it came from controlling movement through the landscape, taxation and service on the routes passing through. By the 2nd century CE, Rome absorbed the Nabatean kingdom, and the carved city slowly declined as sea trade replaced land routes. An hour north of Petra, a different kind of hidden water appears. Wadi Mujib is a river canyon that cuts westward through Jordan's plateau toward the Dead Sea. Inside the canyon, a permanent river runs through a slot barely 10 meters wide. Cool running water surrounded by the same dry stone that defines everything else in Jordan. This is the pattern Jordan keeps repeating. Terrain that looks empty from the outside contains water, life, and complexity once you enter it. Petra answers how one civilization survived and thrived in this terrain. But Jordan's story did not stop with the Nabateans. It accumulated civilizations layer by layer across 2,000 years. What happens to a crossroads country when every empire that passes through leaves something behind? Petra answers how one people survived the desert. But Jordan was not shaped by one civilization. It was a crossroads, and crossroads accumulate. The Greeks arrived after Alexander, then the Romans, who stayed for centuries and left their most complete provincial city standing in northern Jordan. Jerash. Its colonnaded streets, oval forum and twin theatres were not rediscovered. They were never buried. A modern town grew around them. From the air, the scale of Jerash is difficult to process. Roman street grids, temple foundations and public plazas, all intact, inside a living Jordanian city. The columns along the Cardo are still upright. Some still carry their original stone capitals. Jerash was a provincial city, not an imperial capital, which is partly why so much survived. After Rome came Byzantium. The empire that followed did not erase the cities, converted them. Churches replaced temples, mosaics replaced marble floors. In the town of Madaba, south of Amman, a 6th century church floor holds one of the most significant maps ever made. Not on paper, on tile. The Madaba mosaic map depicts the Holy Land in detail. Towns, rivers, desert roads, and at its centre a bird's eye view of Jerusalem. It is the oldest surviving cartographic image of the city. It was laid as a floor. People walked across it for centuries. That it survived at all is its own kind of miracle. North of Madaba, a ridge rises above the Jordan Valley, Mount Nebo. On a clear day, the view reaches across the valley and into the hills of the West Bank. This is the summit where Moses, according to 3 faiths, stood and saw the promised land he would never enter. The geography makes the story easy to believe. The Byzantines built a memorial church here. The mosaics inside show hunting scenes and pastoral life. The same decorative instinct applied to a site of enormous sacred weight. Every empire added a layer, and then came one that most visitors to Jordan do not think to find. East of Amman, the terrain changes. Red sandstone gives way to black basalt. This is the Eastern Desert, flat, volcanic, and almost empty. In the early 8th century, the Umayyad princes built a chain of structures across this landscape: bathhouses, hunting lodges, reception halls. They decorated them with frescoes, human figures, animals, hunting scenes painted on the walls of early Islamic palaces, a tradition that challenges what most people assume about the period. Qusay Amra is one of these buildings. Its walls are covered in detailed human and animal imagery, painted around 715 CE, and most visitors to Jordan have never heard of it. The desert castles are the underused layer of Jordan's story. They prove the Eastern Desert was not empty. It was administered, decorated, and lived in. All of these layers eventually converge in one place, Amman. The city is built across 7 hills, each one carrying a different century. On one hill, a Roman theatre cut into the hillside still hosts performances. On another, an Ottoman-era quarter climbs steep stone streets. Around both, a modern capital of millions goes about its daily life. Amman does not preserve its past in a museum district. It builds around it. The layers are not separated. They are stacked. A Roman theatre below a downtown cafe. A Byzantine mosaic under a modern street. Jordan absorbed every civilization that moved through it, but one element shaped all of them equally and shapes the country still: the question of where the water is. At the southern tip of Jordan, the desert stops at the water's edge. This is Aqaba, Jordan's only coastal city. and one most people have never connected to the Jordan they think they know. Jordan has roughly 26 kilometers of coastline. That is less than many cities have of riverfront, but what lies beneath that water is genuinely surprising. The northern Red Sea hosts some of the most biodiverse coral reefs on Earth, and the corals here have developed unusual heat resistance, making them a subject of serious scientific attention. Below the surface, the contrast with the landscape above is total. Coral formations and reef fish exist within direct sight of red sandstone desert cliffs. Two entirely different worlds share one thin strip of land. Aqaba is not only an ecological surprise. From a ridge above the city, you can see the borders of 4 countries simultaneously: Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. With Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia and Jordan all meeting at the Gulf of Aqaba, the Red Sea's narrow northern tip, where desert coastlines press in around the water. 4 nations sharing one bay. This is one of the most compressed border geographies anywhere on Earth, and it explains why Aqaba has mattered for thousands of years. Long before container ships, Aqaba was a terminus on trade routes connecting Arabia to the Mediterranean and to Africa. The port was old when the Roman Empire was still expanding northward. Spices, copper and cloth moved through Aqaba for millennia. The goods changed. The geographic logic did not. Today Aqaba handles nearly all of Jordan's seaborne trade. Without it, Jordan would be fully landlocked, cut off from direct maritime access to global markets. A small country with no oil wealth depends on that 26-kilometre window more than the map makes obvious. Aqaba is not a resort add-on, it is an economic lifeline. The city is a working place. Cargo cranes run alongside dive boats. A duty-free economic zone draws commerce from across the region. The ancient port and the functional one share the same waterfront. In the space of one country, one you could drive across in a few hours, the terrain shifts from highland plateau to carved canyon to open desert to coral sea. No single image captures all of that, which is exactly why the desert and ruins version of Jordan keeps falling short of what the country actually is. Aqaba is where Jordan's land runs out, but the pattern it completes, extreme terrain compressed into one small map, does not stop here. But there is still one more layer, the outer surface that holds the entire structure together. Most of Jordan is landlocked. Its borders run through desert, highland and rift valley, but at the country's southern tip the land ends abruptly at water. This is Aqaba, Jordan's only port, its only coastline and its only opening to the sea. The city sits at the very northern point of the Red Sea, where the Gulf of Aqaba narrows between 4 countries meeting at the water's edge. Saudi Arabia is visible across the bay to the east. Israel and Egypt lie within a few kilometers to the west. Aqaba occupies the gap between them. For a country with no oil and severe water shortages, this small stretch of coastline carries enormous economic weight. Nearly all of Jordan's imports, fuel, grain, manufactured goods, pass through this single port. But what lies beneath the surface is the chapter's real surprise. The Gulf of Aqaba is unusually deep, reaching over 800 metres in places. Its water is clear, highly saline, and largely free of agricultural runoff. Those conditions have produced a coral reef system that marine biologists describe as among the most resilient on Earth. While reefs in warmer, shallower waters have suffered repeated bleaching events, Aqaba's corals have shown a striking tolerance for thermal stress. Sustained by cool upwellings from depth and the high clarity of the water, the reef thrives in conditions that seem hostile to life above the surface. The reef runs close to shore. Divers enter from the beach and descend into gardens of hard coral beside a country defined by desert. Above the waterline, Aqaba reads differently. Cranes, container ships, tankers at anchor, the port infrastructure that keeps Jordan's economy connected to the world. Fishing boats return in the early morning. The waterfront fills with the routines of a working city, not a resort, not a postcard. Aqaba has been a port for millennia. Ancient traders moving between Arabia and the Mediterranean passed through this same gulf. The Nabateans who carved Petra understood that controlling the northern Red Sea gave them leverage over trade routes stretching in every direction. That logic still holds. The port has grown, the ships are steel now, but the geography remains the same. One narrow outlet, one country dependent on it. From above, the contrast is complete. Behind the city, the Hizma Desert extends northward in broken sandstone. Ahead, the water shifts from turquoise to deep indigo. Jordan contains both of these things within a single map, in a country smaller than Portugal. From the northern highlands to the southern sea, Jordan has shown us a country that defies simple description, and there is one more layer still to place. The map is small. Jordan covers less ground than Portugal, but the terrain it compresses into that space is genuinely unusual. From the lowest dry land on Earth to highland plateaus above 1,000 meters, the elevation change alone reshapes rainfall, settlement, and survival. Every civilization that needed to move between Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean had to cross this same corridor. The geography made it unavoidable. Nabateans, Romans, Byzantines, early Islamic caliphates, they did not choose Jordan arbitrarily. Each found the same corridor and built into it. The result is a country that does not fit a single image. Desert sits beside canyon water. Roman columns stand near mosaic floors, 15 centuries undisturbed. A capital built across 7 hills layers Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman and modern Amman on the same ridgeline, centuries visible in a single glance. At the southern tip, a narrow strip of coastline opens to the Red Sea. Coral reefs inside a country the world still pictures as purely desert. Jordan's compactness was never a weakness. It was the reason so much was built here, fought over here, and preserved here. The map is small, what it contains is not.